Open your browser's network tab on almost any website and you'll see the same thing scroll past. A wall of curly braces, quotes, and colons. That's JSON. And once you can read it, the entire modern web stops looking like magic and starts looking like plain text you can actually understand. Every app on your phone, every website you load, every service you'll ever call over the internet, under the hood, they are all shipping this one tiny format back and forth. It is, quite literally, the language that programs use to talk to each other. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to make JSON click completely. What it is, the handful of rules that run the whole thing, why it beat every heavier format that came before it, and the 3 gotchas that trip up almost everyone. So let's actually learn to read the language of the web. Here is the core problem JSON exists to solve. You've got 2 programs that need to share information. Maybe it's your phone app asking a server for a user's profile. The server knows that profile as a chunk of structured data, a name, an age, a list of hobbies, a flag for whether the account is active. But it can't just hand that memory across. The 2 programs might be written in completely different languages, running on different machines on opposite sides of the planet. The only thing they can reliably send between them is text, a plain stream of characters. So the real question is this. How do you take structured data with all its nesting and its different types, flatten it down into a single line of text, ship it across the wire, and have the other side rebuild it perfectly every time? Solve that cleanly and everything else becomes possible. That's the whole game. So the whole industry settled on one answer, and it is beautifully simple. Agree on a text format that is strict enough for a machine to parse without ever guessing, but plain enough for a human to read at a glance. That format is JSON, short for JavaScript Object Notation. Don't let the name fool you though. It was born from JavaScript, but today it has essentially nothing to do with any single language. Python speaks it, Rust speaks it, Go, Swift, Ruby, that database you're storing things in, all of them read and write the exact same JSON. It became the neutral middle ground, the meeting point where any system can talk to any other system. One format universally understood. That quiet agreement is the entire reason your apps can talk to servers written by people who have never heard of you, in languages you've never touched. Let us crack one open and look inside because JSON is honestly tiny. At its heart is one move you already understand, a key paired with a value. The key is a label, always written in double quotes, something like name or age or email. Then a colon, then the value, the actual piece of data that label points to. Put a few of those pairs together, wrap the whole thing in curly braces, separate them with commas, and you have got an object. Name then Linus, age then 54, active then true. That's it, that is a complete JSON object describing a person, and you could read it out loud to someone who has never written a line of code and they would basically understand it. Labels on the left, data on the right. And here's the beautiful part, everything else in JSON, no matter how big or complicated it looks, is just built up out of that one simple idea repeated. There are exactly 6 kinds of value JSON knows how to hold, and that is the entire vocabulary. 6. First, the string, any text at all, wrapped in double quotes. Second, the number, an age, a price, a temperature written plainly with no quotes around it. Third, the Boolean, true or false, the yes or no of data. Fourth, null, a deliberate way to say this value is empty, we know it is missing on purpose. And then the 2 that hold other things inside them. The object, those curly brace bundles of key value pairs, and the array, an ordered list. That is the complete set. No dates, no special money type, no colors, just those 6. It sounds almost too small to be useful, but that restraint is exactly the point. A tiny, fixed vocabulary is precisely what makes JSON so easy for every language on Earth to agree on and implement without mistakes. Curly braces build an object, and the object is the workhorse of the whole format. Think of it as a labeled container, a bag where every single item has a tag on it. You reach in by name, not by position. Ask for email, you get the email. Ask for age, you get the age. The order of the pairs inside does not even matter because you're always looking things up by their key, never by counting. And this is the clever part. This is exactly how most programming languages already store data internally, a dictionary in Python, a hash map, an object in JavaScript. So when JSON arrives over the network, it drops almost perfectly into the shape your code already thinks in. That is not a happy accident. That clean match between the format on the wire and the data structures already living in your program is a massive part of why working with JSON feels so effortless. Square brackets give you a list, the second container, and the one you reach for whenever order matters or you have more than one of something. A user doesn't have a single hobby, they have several. So hobbies becomes an array, open bracket, then coding, reading, hiking, comma separated, close bracket. Now it is an ordered collection, first to last, and your code can loop straight over it. And here's the thing, an array can hold any of the 6 types. A list of numbers, a list of strings, or the really common one, a list of objects. Picture the response from a server the moment you ask for all of your recent orders. That whole thing is an array, and each slot inside it is a full object describing one order. Lists of objects, that single pattern is probably the most common shape of data on the entire internet. Once you spot it, you see it constantly. Now here is the real power. The thing that lets JSON describe basically anything you can imagine. Values can contain other values all the way down. An object can hold an array. That array can hold more objects. Those objects can hold their own arrays. You nest them like Russian dolls, and there is no real limit to how deep you're allowed to go. So a single user object might contain an address object tucked inside it, which contains a list of previous cities, each of which is its own little object with a name and a year. What you end up with isn't a flat list at all, it's a tree. A branching structure that can model a whole company, an entire product catalog, a complete social feed. That tree shape is the reason one text format can carry data of almost any complexity, from a 2-line settings file to a massive server response, using the exact same handful of rules. So why did this tiny format take over the entire world, when there were plenty of alternatives already sitting there? 3 reasons, and they compound on each other. First, it is genuinely human-readable. You can open a JSON file cold with no tools at all and just read it and understand the shape of the data. That makes debugging and building faster for absolutely everyone. Second, it is language agnostic. Every serious programming language ships with built-in support, so there is no friction, no special library to go hunting for. And third, it maps almost one-to-one onto the data structures programs already use: objects and arrays, dictionaries and lists. Nothing gets lost in translation. Readable by humans, understood by every machine, and shaped exactly like the data already in your code. Hit all 3 of those at once and you don't just win, you become the default that everything else has to justify itself against. Before this one, the old king was a format built entirely out of tags, the same angle bracket style you see underneath web pages. And to be fair, it was genuinely powerful and it is still around. But put the same data side by side, and the difference just leaps out at you. The tag-based version wraps every single value in an opening tag and a matching closing tag, repeating the label twice, drowning the actual data in punctuation and ceremony. JSON says the exact same thing in a fraction of the characters: one label, a colon, the value done. Less to type, less to send across the network, less to read, and far less to get wrong. For the kind of quick, constant back and forth that modern apps do, thousands of tiny requests every second, that lightness matters enormously. The heavier format still has its place in a few corners, but for apps talking to apps, brevity flat out won. Your code never really touches the text directly, and this is the part that ties the whole thing together. JSON travels as a string, a flat line of characters on the wire. But you don't want to work with a string. You want real objects and arrays you can actually poke at in your program. So there are exactly 2 moves, and only 2. Going out, you take your live data structure and turn it into a JSON string to send. That step is called stringify or serialize. Coming in, you take a JSON string you just received and rebuild it into a real object your code can use. That step is called parse. Text becomes data, data becomes text, back and forth, thousands of times a second in every running app on the planet. And the genuinely beautiful part is that every language hands you these 2 functions for free. One call out, one call in. That round-trip parse and stringify is JSON in motion. You already swim in this format every single day, whether you have ever noticed it or not. When a website loads your feed, the server almost certainly sent that feed as JSON. When you set up a JavaScript project, the file that lists every dependency it needs, package.json, is JSON, spelled right there in the name. Your editor settings, config files across countless different tools, the little signed token that proves you're logged in, crack any of them open, and the payload inside is JSON. Cloud services, mobile apps, smart devices quietly phoning home, all of it, JSON flowing over the wire. This is the silent infrastructure underneath the entire modern stack. It's not flashy, nobody writes breathless headlines about it, but pull it out and a genuinely astonishing amount of software simply stops being able to talk. Once you start looking for it, you will see it absolutely everywhere. Let us look at something real, because this stops being abstract the moment you actually see it live. Hit a public API straight from your browser, say ask a big code hosting service for a single user's public profile, and it answers you directly in raw JSON. No app, no interface, no styling, just the data itself. And there it is, an object with the keys running down the left side in one color, the string values sitting beside them in another, the numbers in their own, everything indented into that now familiar tree. Login, then the username. Public repos, then a plain number. Created at, then a date served up as a string, and yes, we're about to come back to that. This exact shape, this precise structure, is what is flowing behind basically every app you touch. That wall of text from the intro isn't noise anymore. You can read it now. A few sharp edges will absolutely bite you, and it is almost always the same three, so let me save you the pain up front. Number 1. No trailing commas. List your last item, and if you leave a comma dangling after it right before the closing brace, the whole thing is invalid. A strict parser will reject the entire file. Number 2. Keys must be wrapped in double quotes, and it has to be double quotes, not single. That one trips up nearly everyone coming from a looser language. And number 3. The sneaky one. JSON has no comments and no real date type. You cannot leave yourself a note in the file, and any date is really just a string that everyone has quietly agreed to format the same way. So when you see a timestamp sitting in some JSON, always remember to JSON that is plain text, nothing more. Watch those 3 and you'll dodge the errors that catch almost every single beginner. So let us tie this whole thing together in 3 clean lines. 1. JSON is a lightweight text format for structured data built out of key-value pairs, objects, and arrays, a tiny vocabulary of just 6 value types and nothing more. 2. It won because it is readable by humans, understood by every language, and shaped exactly like the data already in your code, and you move between flat text and live objects using just parse and stringify. 3. It is the quiet standard sitting underneath nearly every API, config file, and app on the internet, which means learning to read it fluently is a genuine, transferable superpower. That is the entire picture. A format simple enough to fully explain in 10 minutes, and important enough that the entire web quietly runs on it. If this finally made the format click for you, that is exactly what this channel is here for, taking the invisible pieces every builder leans on and making them obvious. So subscribe, because next in the series we go one level deeper into the thing JSON spends most of its life carrying around. APIs, what they actually are, and how apps really talk to each other across the internet. It is the natural next step from everything you just learned here. I'll see you in that one.